Did you guys all get the handouts?
Yes.
So it's a PowerPoint presentation, but I thought it'd be useful for you guys, you know, throw it in your file. It's got all the good stuff on there. And then we also have this electric fence manual that I think should be in there. And then it should also have this got grizzly bears compensation fund. And that's really cool. You can get up to $500 toward your fence if you're in an area that's important to the defenders of wildlife. And pretty much all this area is. We're starting to see grizzlies show up all through here. So it's a great means of getting the Energizer. If you get a solar Energizer, they're pretty spendy. For a good one, $300-400. For a plug-in though, that's really powerful, they're dirt cheap. You just got to make sure they're 0.7 joules or higher, but I'll talk a little bit about that. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through my PowerPoint, so grab that and be ready to look at those pictures. Oh, and this, by the way, is a critter getter. They used to be really cheap, and now they're like 65 bucks because they're becoming more and more popular. But these are so handy. Like if you've got a grain shed, chicken coop, even your garbage can, your hunting camp, or I carry it when I'm hunting. And if I knock down a deer or elk, I put this on a tree right next to it so that overnight it'll keep, you know, the ravens off, a wolverine off, a grizzly off, until either the battery wears out or, you know, after a while, you know, like if you left it up for 2 days on an elk carcass, your elk carcass would be gone by the time you got back. But it's a real handy kind of thing. I actually have them on my wall tent just to scare people too, and to keep a bear out of my wall tent. Once in a while when we show up for a conflict, you know, we'll have a bunch of these, and we'll temporarily put one of these up if we don't have our electric fence with us, just to keep the bear or the lion, you know, away for the night until we can come back with a temporary fence. And that's my temporary fence kit that I carry in my truck at all times. All of us have one. They're varying lengths. Net fences are wonderful and really efficient, but if you do buy one, do not buy an all hot. They're worthless. Make sure that they're hot ground. And hot ground is just, I'll show you on this fence here, but you know, you have a hot wire, you have a ground wire, a hot wire, a ground wire, hot wire. All hot ones just don't work. You know, you have to really ground them with tons of grounding rods. And then we found out this winter, we set up a all hot fence at the Indian Bible School in Alberton because they had a bear getting in their chicken coop. Well, we set it on top of snow, but we put grounding rods and everything in there. But the bear was insulated by standing on the snow, so he didn't get a shock. The only way to make an all hot mesh fence, or even an all hot metal fence or poly wire fence, is you have to have grounding. You know, that's either on a mat that the bear or the lion is standing on and then touches the hot and gets the shock through the wire that's grounded to the Energizer plus the soil. I know this is all confusing. I'll talk about that a bit more, but just if you buy a net fence, don't buy an all hot one. So on the front page here, I have a couple examples. We've had to kill so many grizzlies, so many black bears, so many lions, just because they have gone in and killed a $10 chicken. And through state law, you can actually kill a black bear, a lion, not a grizzly, but according to state law you can, but federal law you can't kill it. It says in the state law that you can kill a grizzly for killing livestock. Well, a chicken is livestock. A bee is livestock. And the federal government doesn't recognize that. So there is some confusion. We've had people like, what's this right there in the state law? It can kill a grizzly. dump it, and then they end up getting like a $10,000 fine. If you aren't sure if it's a black bear or a grizzly, call us and let us deal with it. But sadly, through state laws, you can shoot a black bear that's killed one of your chickens. I don't agree with it. I think people should be required to have electric fence. But this is a big old grizzly that just became addicted to chickens up in the Kalispell area. And Tim Manley, just by chance, caught him just in the act of grabbing that chicken that was just coming out of the coop at first light. He'd kind of wait till they hopped out, and then he'd jump on him and grab him. And you can see right next to it, there's a bear trap right there with a whole, hind quarter of a elk or a deer in there, and he's like, the heck with the hind quarter of the elk or deer, I want to eat chicken. The way they start out is with feed, the slop. And then chicken feed is real high protein. It helps with making the shells real hard, and it makes for more laying. And so chicken feed is a higher energy protein feed than horse feed, chicken or livestock feed, and so they get a little bit of that chicken feed and they become addicted to it. It's just like heroin. And that's sort of how it starts. Very similar with bird feeders. They get into that first bird feeder, and even though they get a little tiny reward of some sesame seeds and sunflower seeds, I mean, it's pure fat, pure oil, and their body, tells them, like, get some more of this. And it is. It's just like crystal meth or something to a bear. Bird seed and chicken feed. And once they start that process, I mean, they'll do just about anything for bird seed or chicken feed. And just as an example, up in the Sealy area, we had someone with a shed very similar to this. They had multiple bird feeders up, and the bear was coming in and grabbing the bird feeder and pulling it down and getting all the seed, and then they kind of brought it out only during daytime hours, and took it down at night. Well, that turned the bear into a daytime bear where he started coming in for the bird feeder. Well, eventually they did put the bird feeder in a shed like that and had the door closed with all their bird seed. So they must have had 50, 60 pounds of bird seed in there. The bear broke into the shed. What did he steal? The bird feeder. He was like, walked right past all that bird seed and grabbed the bird feeder. And then I had another house do that too, where they actually brought it in the front pantry, the front alcove of the house, and there was a dog door. And the bear like squeezed through the dog door and went right by the bird seed and grabbed the bird feeder and pulled the bird feeder out through the dog door. So they get really addicted, and it's a visual. They'll see a hornet trap, or they'll see a plant hanging up on the second floor of a condo, and they'll think it's a bird feeder. So it's a visual sort of attractant. And so bird seed, chicken feed, very similar, very addictive. And then if you do have a good stout coop, you can see in the picture below that once a bear becomes fully addicted to bird seed, boy, they'll do anything to break in there. But what happens is they squish a chicken. And once they squish a chicken, it's like, whoo, I might as well eat this. And they'll gnaw off the head, nothing but fat. The skin is nothing but fat. And so pretty quick, they develop this taste for chicken. Same with lions. Same with all of our predators out there. But then you'll get these bears that are not only addicted to the feed, but also the chicken itself. And I've had bears that I've tried to capture and couldn't capture. I was throwing all sorts of goodies in there. One was up by Ovando at the Pocha Ranch. And just by chance, I had one trap with this old dried up chicken in it that had been hanging off the treadle for like months. And I was like, well, I've got this trap too, I might as well set it. So out of all the traps I had set, 2 or 3 snares, 3 or 4 covert traps with moose heads and elk heads and all sorts of goody stuff in there. And just by chance, when I was leaving, I went by to go check out my trap that had this withered up chicken in it. There he was. So they can really develop a taste for chickens. So if you have issues, with any of your livestock, Fish, Wildlife, and Park is not the agency to call. So if you have a bear tearing into your bee yard, or you have a bear, kills a goat or kills a sheep, it's Wildlife Services that's responsible for that. The Department of Agriculture's USDA Wildlife Services. And our local guy here is Ted North. He's got all this Mineral County up on the reservation and the Seeley Lake area. Then there's another fellow who's got all of Powell County, Granite County, and then the Valley County, and his name is Bart Smith. So those are your two guys. But lethal control, that's what they do. They set traps and they kill them, or they sit out with sharp overnight and night vision goggles and shoot them. They do have a program that they just started up recently that's starting to do preventative stuff. So what I'm going to talk about here with Defenders of Wildlife, some people just can't stomach working with a liberal, bunny hugging group called Defenders of Wildlife. And if you just can't deal with working with that kind of conservation group, Wildlife Services does have a preventative conflict program. And it comes right out of their own kitty, and they will also help you with a fence. They try not to do just homesteading, farmsteading type small projects. They're more for the big ones. So like if you're a sheep rancher or goat rancher, that's where they come in. If you need to fence the whole 40 or the whole 80, that's where they come in. If you got wolves coming in, again, Wildlife Services, but we do have a wolf manager, here in Fish and Game that can also help you with preventative stuff. So it doesn't have to be bears. And then, of course, bears, lions, just call and ask for, one of the members of the bear management team. That's me, James Jonkel, or Eli Hampson, or Bruce Montgomery, or Brad Ballas. Bruce has got the Bitterroot. Brad has got the Deer Lodge, and then Eli has the Missoula Blackfoot, plus myself. And then we have one fellow working for the Blackfoot Challenge named Eric Graham, who's NGO affiliate, but he helps us out, and he's in the Blackfoot, so you can always reach out to him as well. And if you've got deer, elk in your stack yards, just call Fish and Game, and local biologist will help you out. So a lot of people are like, we never know what the bears are doing. What are they eating right now? Where are the pulses of activity? We've got a website called MissoulaBears.org. I don't know if any of you have keyed into that. We've also got an accompanying Facebook page, and we're getting ready to do a Facebook page down in the Bitterroot, and then we got one up in Seeley and one in Potomac as well. If you go to those Facebook pages or the website, we have bear updates and lion updates and moose updates. We don't do wolves. But in there you can find out, like, okay, where's all the bear activity? And in there I'll explain what they're eating and where all hell's breaking loose in various spots. Usually it's Potomac, or it's the rattlesnake drainage. Rattlesnake drainage is insane with black bears and lions both. But it'll give you, we do that update every couple weeks. And if there's a big moose running around your neighborhood, we'll let you know. And then if there's a mountain lion or a mountain lion family group, killing goats, killing chickens, or killing deer in people's yards, or walking across the grade school roof, that kind of information is in there as well. What's nice, you can report incidents. Like if you're like, I've tried calling Fish and Game, James Jonkel's phone is always full. And nobody's ever at Fish and Game. You can get on the website and report an incident right there, or on the Facebook page as well. So that's MissoulaBears.org, and then Missoula Bears Facebook, and then it'll be Bitterroot Bears Facebook, and Seeley Lake Bears Facebook, etc., etc. So I kind of briefly described getting some help, and the Defenders of Wildlife have that wonderful program I just mentioned. There's a fellow that runs it named Russ Talmo. I don't know if any of you know him. He's a hell of a lot more good looking than I am. And he is so helpful. He will actually come out and help you put up the fence if you're having trouble. And then he's the one that you go through to get reimbursed. It's best to go through the program, you know, and sign up all the stuff first and then do it. But if you've already built a coop and you've dumped $500 and you have your receipts, you can go in with your receipts and get reimbursed. And it's up to 50% or up to $500. And that's the brochure. So if you're interested in starting a project, you can just do the paperwork. I believe, was there a W-2 form attached to? I think there was. You have to send that in as well to get your reimbursement.
Yeah, we have those, I think, on a separate page there if anybody wants one.
Now, finding out how to build electric fence, there's some really good resources out there. The Bible was put together by Patty Salka with the Living with Wildlife Foundation website, and she virtually pulled together everything that anyone has ever done with electric fence on Earth, from Australia to Europe to here, and she put it all in this guide called Living with Predators Resource Guide. And I've got the link right here, but that almost is too much information. You know, it tells you how to fence out elephants, but it's really, really, really good.
I know we have a big problem with that.
Yeah. The most fascinating stuff and how electric fence kind of got evolved was in Australia because of the dingoes and because of the rabbits. And for a dingo fence, I think it requires 14 hot ground fences or wires 2 inches apart, you know. Thank goodness we don't require that. But what we do say is you have to have a minimum of 5 wires, hot ground, or else a good grounding fence. Like you could retrofit 3 hot wires over that fence as it is, and it would count as a hot ground 5-wire fence, because all of that fence behind it, the chicken wire, the hog panel, the field fence, would all be your ground. But it would have to be all connected, and it would have to be connected to a ground rod with insulated cable. Might take a while. I'll go as fast as I can. So then we have, of course, our electric fence guide. That's really good. Kim Annis put that together, and that's she was calling it electric fencing for dummies for a while, but she changed that. It wasn't going over too good, but it really simplifies the process, because you read the directions, you know, that you get with Gallagher. You know, it's kind of like, you know, you're like, it blows your mind. You know, they don't really tell you how to do it. They just, yeah, none of it makes sense. We tried to simplify it. And there in the bottom corner, you see a pretty good 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-wire stranded fence that's hot ground. That's the bulletproof one for bears and lions. It's this is on, I don't have the pages numbered, but it's where it says Deterring Bears with Electric Fences, a Beginner's Guide. That's what you have to build to get reimbursed. It can't be, you know, all hots. It can't be just 3. It can't be just 1. It's got to be that multi-wire. That one works great, like I said, for bears and lions. But if you're trying to get a skunk or fox, you have to throw a few more wires in there. That's where that mesh comes in nice. And there you got it. Next page is Russ Telmo, the handsome fella. He put together a really excellent video that's just, you know, kind of tells you how to build an electric fence. And then the Canadians, the next page, how to install fencing for bears. I can't remember this gal's name, but she's with Grizzly Bear Solutions. She put out a really, really good video. Very detailed on exactly how to build a fence for chickens, bees, whatever. And then up in Canada, in Alberta, I don't know if you've ever heard of the town of Canmore. Canmore is like, you know, the holy city for all bear managers. You know, it's like the town is completely bear resistant. They have travel corridors around and through the town where no humans are allowed, only bears and lions and wildlife. They're actually having programs where they're removing natural food vegetations like huckleberries and chokecherries in the inner city so as not to attract bears. But it's like, you know, it's the dream come true for a bear manager. And that's where the whole bear smart thing sort of started for cities and towns. Was the Canadians have been doing it for years, and just recently we got a new program here in Montana, or the lower 48 states, for Bear Smart. And we're trying to make Missoula Bear Smart right now. We're trying to make Alberton Bear Smart and Sealy Bear Smart. So pretty cool stuff. But this film, Zapped, Managing Bear Conflicts in Southern Alberta, is also an excellent one, but they recommend all hot fence. That's the only problem with that, but they've got some pretty good stuff in there. So, you know, mostly I'll be talking about bears and lions, but, you know, face it, everything out there loves to eat chickens, you know. Some of the worst carnage I have seen have been done by weasels. You know, you get these calls like, oh my gosh, all my chickens are dead, all 40 of them, you know, can come over here sometime. And I'll get over there, and there'll just be a whole bunch of dead chickens with no heads. And I'll be like, weasel. One weasel will get in there and just have a heyday. You know, they love that. They'll go for the head because of the brain. And they just go on a rampage. And then you get some more chickens, and they're there again. But you got mink, you got fisher, you got pine marten, you got skunk, all the mustelids, wolverine, you know, badger. They'll all go after chickens. You know, all your birds of prey. You know, it's like, hey, there's something white flying. You know, it's easier to see, you know. But all of your birds of prey, you know, go for grouse, ducks, squirrels, that kind of thing. So a chicken is like a bonus. And when they fly over some yard, you know, or an owl, it's like, whoa, what's that? You know, they'll fly back around, like 40 of them. Boom. They're there every night until they've got them all. Let's see. Foxes are always a big one. You know, right here, foxes, skunks, coon is what you'll be dealing with here. We have had lions just over here by DeMarshies, and then right here, in fact, is that Council Groves apartment complex? Yeah. So right there, right behind the canoes, I picked up a lion kill. Right there. That was about 15 years ago, but a lion killed a deer right there behind the canoes. Bobcat, of course, too. But, you know, the worst culprits are our own friend, the dog. You know, so many people like, you know, like, I don't know what killed it. I think it's a bear, you know, and then you look over and see their black lab with a little feather hanging out. But house cats, too. And there's tons of wild house cats. Like when I do our nighttime surveys for deer, you know, in the summer months, way even up in these side drainages. What do I see the most on eyeshine? House cats. Wild feral house cats. They're everywhere. And they've actually become like part of the prey base for lions and other predators, you know. So that's why a lot of times when people have house cats, lions come in to kill them. Lions are kind of competitive over other lions, and cat piss smells just like lion piss. And so a lot of times if you have a bunch of house cats, lions will be attracted to your place because of all the cat urine, and they'll get kind of competitive, and then they'll a lot of times try to hunt and kill the cats. So we get a lot of that. You know, in the wild, you know, bears, all of your predators are just spending a lot of time, you know, looking for grouse nests, looking for duck nests, looking for geese nests. They're mostly going for the eggs. We've had bears climb up trees to get into red-tail nests and eagle nests, you know, and they'll eat the eggs and they'll eat the chicks, you know. So it's part of the diet. And, you know, you throw domestic turkeys, domestic ducks, domestic chickens down there on the landscape. They don't know the difference, you know. It's like, they're like, whoa. You know, it's kind of like they're used to eating chokecherries, they're used to eating hawthorn berries, about the size of an eraser on a pencil, and then they find an apple. can you believe how mind-blowing that would be to a bear to come across a plum or an apple or a pear? You know, it's like, oh, thank you, you know. And so they can't help themselves, you know, and they're going to do it. But so it's the same with, you know, the chickens and the ducks. Something's going to try to kill them, and so you need to protect them, and that's why we really push for electric fence. This is a pretty wordy. It's recent times lion, black bear, and grizzly chicken related conflicts have become an issue. You know, they were never an issue when I first started working for Fish and Game, and they were never really an issue in the past because the only people that had chickens, you know, were the few farmers here and there, you know. But because of the, you know, the kind of the urban farmer thing and all the way the world's going to rat hell, everyone's sort of more interested in growing their own food and, you know, having chickens and having goats. And so we've just noticed that recently just more and more people are tuning into chickens, getting goats, getting sheep. It's just become extremely popular. And as a result, chickens are now one of the top 3 issues. So garbage has always been number 1, uncontained garbage. Number 2 has always been bird feeders. Number 3 is now chickens. And chickens in many ways have even gone beyond bird feeders and garbage, because with chickens, you have to kill the bear a lot of times. Like under state law with black bears, I'm really required to kill the bear. I always try to, you know, do preemptive stuff, and then when I trap it, it's like, well, you think this is the same bear? And the person will be like, nope, different bear. I'll relocate it. But a lot of folks don't realize that, you know, lions and black bears by state law, you know, can be killed by people just if they kill a chicken, but we also have to remove them. But I don't always do that, you know. But with grizzlies, you know, they're a federally protected animal. And on this one page, I mean, it's just gotten crazy. I mean, there was never any issues with chickens, and now I just pulled a little picture of all the articles related to bears, grizzlies that have been involved with chicken issues and that had to be killed or were shot, and it's become a huge issue.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
It says last year, 2023, we dealt with more than 500 chicken-related conflicts. Was that just in Missoula?
No, that's all of Region 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's not the state, that's Region 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But it started progressively, you know. I just sort of noticed, like, oh, boy, there's a lot of chickens, you know, and I have a lion shot because it killed a goose,
Sure.
you know, and then a bear, and then I get more and more calls, and it's just elevated.
Sure.
Yeah, it's nuts. But you don't have to get bored. Google up some of these articles.
Sure.
And then I've got some quotes here, you know, like it's not just in Region 2, like on the Flathead Indian Reservation, it's out of control up there. In Stacy Corville, 2011, 18 bears he had to capture that raided chicken coops. 9 had to be killed. Biggest threat to grizzly bears in the delasting process in my area is people with chickens. You know, and then Tim Manley has a couple nice articles as well on the Flathead Valley. You can still Google up those articles, but he's had to kill a ton of bears, you know, because of chickens. And then here's some from me, you know. I like this one. Well, maybe I don't have it in there. It's where I call them garbage cans with wings. I was quoted. I was like, oh boy. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah. I get called daily on chickens. Chickens are the new garbage. There's so many chickens on the landscape, it's like having garbage cans with wings. So, you know, we as bear managers get pretty worked up. And, you know, it's like bird feeder calls drive us insane because we've been beating that drum for so long. Don't have bird feeders up if you live in wild country, you know. And inevitably we get a bird feeder call a day. It's like, well, would you come trap this bear? He's gotten in my bird feeder twice now. And I'm like, but some people are extremely passionate about their bird feeding. And let's just say I have several grandmas that I'm suspect that have hired hitmen out for me.
Those are flying
and-
monkeys.
What's that?
Flying monkeys.
Yes, flying monkeys. And I can't remember her name, but the gal that used to run the bird seed store downtown, she hated me. And she claimed she moved to Bozeman because I was ruining everything here. Let's see. So I then have this nice little picture of a bear. Bears and food. You know, bears do think they're with their stomach. They're just like a black lab. They're very easy to catch if you can figure out what food item they want. But they do, you know, it's like money to them, good food. And this is just a little picture I found on the internet that included 10 chickens, but they said they need 20,000 calories per day. That's 300 cups of berries, 37 fish, 280 apples, and 10 chickens. And I was like, well, you know, that's not really a natural food, and I think I'll erase that and turn it into 10 grouse instead. So for us, the way it starts, you know, I always am kind of wait until Murdoch's has their little chick day. And I'm like, I'll go down there and of course, you know, see everyone like all with their little kids like, oh, they're so cute. And they'll get a whole bunch of chicks. And, you know, with no preparation, no pre-planning, and they take them home and they have them in their bathtub, you know, and get them warm and get them a little bigger. But then they don't usually have a coop. They haven't even thought about electric fence. And next thing you know, there's 20 chickens in the front yard and backyard of some house that's out in the middle of nowhere up in the Tules. And then, you know, the predators key into them and come in and start murdering and slaying chickens, and then we start getting calls. But here's a little synopsis of how it happens. Someone buys a box of chicks, they don't have any set up, and the next thing you know, they got a shabby coop and 40 chickens running around, you know, and that's basically how it starts. And that's how the bears get trained up, is in these real wild areas. So if you live in a wild area like Petty Creek, or way in the heck up Patty Canyon, or way in the heck up Woodchuck Creek, or, you know, some place up by Drummond up in the reforestation project, you know, that's where you're going to train them up, get them learning about chickens, and then they'll come down in the low country and start coming toward towns, you know, for chickens and garbage. Like I said earlier, you know, the chicken feed is the big one. And you have to lock your chicken feed up like it's money. You know, it's got to be in a vault. And it's got to be in something steel. Something that's totally bear resistant, or in a building that's really stout. Because once they key into chicken feed and grain, I mean, they will tear off barn doors for it once they get really acclimated to it. And once you get a grizzly tearing off barn doors, we have to remove them. We have to kill them. So we encourage folks to get their feed not in plastic containers. I've seen so many spots where, you know, right next to the coop outside is a plastic garbage can with all of the chicken feed in it. You got to have a steel truck box. You know, one of those good ones, like if the one you would put your power tools in, so Billy Bob down the road wouldn't couldn't break into it. That's the same thing you need for chicken feed. A lot of times if you go to these military surplus places, you can find some really cool stuff. I've seen where people have used old freezers, but you have to really ratchet strap them. You have to have two good ratchet straps because they're a little bit too bendable. They're like a lot of those plastic dumpster lids, you know, where you see the bears like peel them off the side so they can get in. But a freezer's better than nothing. But getting them in there, but you know, a good shed, like that's a fair shed. You know, a good shed would be if that was big solid logs or 4x4. You know, a bear could break into that pretty easy. Oh, and then I just sort of have some pictures of chickens being murdered by bears. And then in the right-hand corner, I have a good example of a temporary fence. So, you know, that fence, that's us showing up at the chicken coop and quickly putting that fence around it just to sort of stop things. And then we encourage them to either get on with the program or, you know, if they're like, no, you get that damn bear out of here, I'm going to shoot it, then we set a trap. More pictures of bears doing things that I wish they weren't doing. So free-ranging chickens, I know it's good, you know, they're eating all the bugs, they're eating all the grass, the plankton, you know, the clover, getting worms. It's good for the lawn. But in these wild settings, boy, we just don't recommend free-ranging. They just, they're going to get taken one by one, you know, and you're going to train up a bunch of predators.
Can you do it like during the daytime if you're around?
So it's kind of like bird feeders, you know. It could turn them into a daytime bear or a daytime lion. Best is the chicken run. And I've got some pictures a little later on. I don't know if you've seen those chicken coops on wheels, and then they move the net with it across the field. But I've also seen some pretty cool ones where, you know, you just get one guy on one side and the other guy on the other, and you move it over the whole coop over 10 feet, and the coop and the chicken run are together, and you can kind of move it. I've seen a giant ball made with chicken wire, and I thought that one was pretty cool. It was, there's an old cabin up at Lubrecht that this old hermit lived in. I can't remember his name now, but out there was this big giant round thing with chicken wire, and I was like, what's that? And then Hank Getz, the manager of Lubrecht, said, well, that's where he kept his chickens. And he'd have like 5 or 6 chickens in there, and he just kind of every day rolled the ball. And they'd have all the grass, you know, and just every day moved it around the field, and they were kind of protected in there. But here's some good examples of really good stout wood coops. A good stout wood coop will keep them out, but electric also enhances it. And you can see this one bear in front of the food shed. He was breaking in, and they finally electrified the door, just made, or the window, made a little electric panel. But you know, very quickly and very cheaply, you can, you know, cobble together what you have and make a fence like this, and then just retrofit 3 hot wires over that, and you could make this your protective chicken pen. That black one over there would be ideal. You could retrofit hot wires on that puppy, and boy, that'd be a good looking fence too. But cattle panels, hog panels, the easiest, if you don't like pounding posts and you don't like digging posts, if you get cattle panels, throw them on the ground flat, about 5 of them, and wire them together where they overlap. Then you could kind of plop them up and bend them into a circle. And that is just sort of stays like that. You can rig up a little gate of some sort, and it's real easy to move around a little yard or whatever. And then you can retrofit hot wires off that. Just some more pictures of various coops. Now, my favorite was the trampoline turned into a coop. I was like, wow, that is a really good idea, because they can pick that up and move it. But you could also electrify that very, very easily. And then when I was Googling up, you know, Alaska chickens, you know, boy, they've come up with some cool ones. You can see where they've used these sort of metal hexagon things, you know, and then you've got your wheeled cart, you know, you can move it around. Now, this would be a little extreme for here, but like, let's say you lived up the West Fork of Petty Creek. Wild. You know, that's where I'd think about trying to do something on this lower part. Or if you lived up in Helmville in a yurt, I'd have my yurt protected by electric fence, but I'd also have my chickens in something like this. And then that hog panel, I mean, that's amazing. Like, that is one of the most valuable tools on earth. You know, you get those 16-foot cattle panels and you retrofit two of them together, and you can bend them, you know, and pound a couple stakes in the ground, and you can make a real easy roof kind of dome protective thing for a run off the side of your coop. Or you can just do a kind of a, you know, a tube. But yeah, I love cattle panel. It is great. And if you put that cattle panel on tires, or if you, you know, have some sort of insulation on the bottom of them, you can make the whole cattle panel hot. You can actually make a truck hot. Like, I could electrify my truck there because it's insulated because of the tires. And so I've had to do that a couple times, or I'll have a dead elk in the back of my truck when I'm trapping, you know, and I'm like, ugh, and I'll just plug in an Energizer to it. And it makes my whole truck hot. It's not as good as the hot ground system that I was talking about earlier, but it does make the truck hot, and they get a shock out of the soil. Here's some good store-bought coops. You know, those are fairly easy to move and fairly easy to put wheels on, and very easy to put electric fence on. You can see that dog kennel one in the middle. You can buy those at Murdoch's, you know, for pretty cheap, Lowe's for pretty cheap, and you could put 3 hot wires on that and use the dog kennel fence as the ground. Worked great. So if you're going to do electric fence, you might as well do it right. I get this all the time, you know, like, I'm not going to use electric fence because it doesn't work. I'm like, well, what do you mean it doesn't work? Well, I set it up the other day and bear went right through it. And it's like, well, how many wires did you use? One hot wire, you know, or even 2. You know, that's not enough. That won't do it. And this is a good example, this photo, where the bear chewed through at chest height to get to right where the chickens were roosting and laying their eggs, and got in there and had a heyday. So, you know, use good materials, use a good Energizer. Don't be tricked into buying one of these crappy Energizers, you know, like those zappers. I don't know if you've seen those. You know, in the old days, all you could buy was the zapper, and it was this little tiny thing, you know, and you could hold it, and it, you know, it felt good. And then there's a lot of Energizers that are for horses that work great for horses, just don't have the power. And a lot of them will have like 10,000 volts, you know, and all this stuff. What you're looking for is joules. So volts, just don't even think about volts. Think about joules. And what you're looking for is 0.7 joules or higher. And I had a lot of trouble kind of like understanding joules. And finally, I had Larry Fight say, well, Jamie, a joule is the amount of power of the shock that comes out. And it's like you can go up Pipestone Pass with a Volkswagen going 70 miles an hour, but you cannot pull a 5-horse trailer going 70 miles an hour. That's the zapper. You want one with 0.7 or better, or 1 joule, and it's like a Cummins diesel Dodge going over Pipestone Pass at 70 miles an hour with a truckload of mules. And I was like, okay, I can understand that. So you're looking for that joule rating.
And there's no harm to the bear or lion?
Ooh, it hurts. It hurts.
Well, yeah, which is...
Yeah,
I've
no harm to them. You know, you'll hear people like with pacers.
Sure.
You're like, whoa, I've got a pacer. I'm like, and I believe it would maybe do something to a pacer, because when I've been shocked, man, it's like your heart feels like it jumps up into your throat for a minute and then back down.
They don't want to feel that again.
Yeah, and it's horrible. And I've been shocked a lot. But when with these other lighter ones, you know, you can actually, you know, I'm always frightened to, but then I hold it and be like, oh, that's nothing, you know. And I can actually hold it, and it's not pleasant. But if it's built effectively and you've got the right joule rating on there, you cannot hold it.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if you've never sworn in your life, I mean, you do.
But it beats taking their life and them killing all your chickens.
Yes, so it works wonderfully.
Don't the chickens, like what if the chickens run into it? Or are you
So yes, chickens can get a shock too, but most of the chickens, you know, they fly over it. That's where it's nice to have the roof. But all it takes is one shock, but it won't kill a chicken.
it won't kill?
Pigs are tough. Like pigs, if it's working, it's fine, but they're always like, you know, snorting, and pretty soon you'll have a 1.5 foot of dirt over against your fence, and once it's grounded out, it doesn't work. And so with pigs, you almost have to have the fence and then an interior single hot wire. And they'll root all around the single hot wire, but you know, that'll be enough of a shock to keep them away from the main fence. So with pigs, not only are you trying to keep the bears out and the pigs in, but then keep the pigs from grounding. Yeah.
What about, on that same topic, like if your dog actually runs into it, or she,
Again, they won't do it again.
but it's like it'll hurt them, but it won't kill them.
Won't kill them. Won't kill them. And what's nice, like a bird can land on a hot wire. As long as he doesn't touch a ground wire, he's fine. So a lot of people that just insist on having a bird feeder, you know, will set it up where it's got electric around it, and the birds will land on the hot wire, eat the bird seed. They won't get a shock, and the squirrels won't either unless their tail goes down and touches the hot or the ground. So birds are pretty safe. But yeah, a cat or a dog, boy. But some dogs I've seen that just do this like Houdini flight through the fence. You know, they'll like, and if you go through it quick enough, you won't get shocked. That's same for you too. If you quickly grab the gate, you know, sometimes you can get it loose and won't get a shock, but sometimes you'll hit it just when the shock is. And
Jamie, we raised pigs for quite a few years, and we had the hot wire around, and we would listen every morning because we know the hot wire was on because you could hear it. You'd hear the
yep,
and then
snapping.
the squeal, the scream, of the egg, and we go, oh good, everything's working.
Well, I've got some great videos of bears getting shocked, and I just love it. You know, you hear, you know, they do this horrible yelp. You can tell, like, and then they just take off. They just take off.
What type of joule power should we be looking for?
What's that?
What type of joule power? Or like, is there a number?
You know, a 0.7 or higher. 0.7 or higher. And I've got a couple energizers over here that I did not bring any plug-in. Like I said, plug-in are real cheap, and you can get like a 5 joule plug-in, you know, for pretty cheap, and that'll light anything up. You know, 1 joule or better is best, but for the backcountry and for remote sites where you have to rely on solar, 0.7 is you don't want to go any lower than that. Yeah. Although I'll show you one energizer over here that's 0.65, and in my mind I'm like, well, that's close enough. So I do use that because it's a very lightweight energizer. I got a picture here of a couple bears that were just raising heck on this one coop. You can see them on the roof. They broke in multiple times. The landowner, after I said, you know, maybe you should electrify it, I bet that'll help. You can see in the middle only one little wire. So we went back in and really fancied it up. Made electric shutters for them and electric on the door, did a spider web on the door, and it stopped the problem. More pictures, more examples of the netting as well. You know, that's the easiest way for you guys. But here I have a picture of the ultimate chicken coop, and this is your friend Brown. I thought you had said that you knew her. She lives up the Rattlesnake, and she called me up and she said, Jamie, I want to build the ultimate chicken coop. And so I gave her a whole bunch of ideas and designs. I can't remember her name. Anyway, it's amazing coop. It's Fort Knox. She actually trenched out and rigged it up so that the chicken wire would come down and under the log, so that if a bear or skunk was digging on the outside, it couldn't dig under. And then brought that up real tight, and then retrofitted all these nice hot wires on top. The only flaw was that a bear could get on the roof and jump in and couldn't get out. But she fixed that by rigging up this thing where the bear, if he was trying to get up on the roof of the house, would get shocked too. And you can see there's some digging attempt. But this is, if you're wanting to build the ultimate chicken coop, these are the blueprints. And then for moving, free-ranging chickens, just some ideas here. The chicken coop on wheels. And then Jimmy Stone up in the Ovando area made his own rapid deployment electric fence. And he's got it all rigged up on his ATV, and he can whip out a 5-wire fence in like minutes, it seems like, But he's always helping us out up there. Someone will have a bunch of goats, and Jimmy will be like, "I'll be over there tomorrow." And you get there at 8 o'clock, and he's already been there and gone and has it up. And then, another kind of guilt you out type thing with some dead bears there at the end. And that's it. We can go over and look at the coop there, and I can, if we were wanting to electrify that, I would tell you what we need to do there. But if you want, first we'll go over here and I'll just show you how it works. But any questions,
so
or
you know,
need a break?
Just a temporary fence.
Okay.
That's going to be real tall and have a roof and everything. Just so you know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And
those chickens could fly over there.
and here you don't have much to worry about. It's the cats, the skunks, and raccoons and
Yeah, I was
occasional-
going to say, my parents had chickens for many years and never used an electric fence. And I guess they just got lucky.
Yeah, and
sometimes
it
happens.
the bear population and the lion population has figured it out.
Okay.
It's because there's so much of it, it's now become a new food source. And for something to become a new food source, means there's a lot of it out there. Bears were never known to eat caraganda, for example. And then with all the hedgerows that are going in, for holding the soil together and stuff, down in Wyoming, they just documented that that population of bears around Cody has suddenly learned that caraganda is a new food source.
Okay.
And for the first time ever, they're eating caraganda. So, and all of them learn at the same time. And it's kind of like we had the very first couple grain spills on the railroad on the Highway 2 corridor, when they tipped over those first trains and all that corn and all that wheat got dumped. It took a while, but pretty soon it went from just 1 bear to 2 bears, 3 bears, to 60 bears keyed into it. And they had a bear in the South Fork of the Flathead that had been collared most of its life, had never been over in the Middle Fork ever, suddenly went over there. And so there's some theory that bears have a method of communication. Nobody really knows how, but they figure it out. And he traveled, over the top of the Great Bear, and ended up in the Middle Fork of the Flathead and feeding on grain along with 40 other bears. So there's some sort of communication factor there. But it's just, it's like garbage. If you get enough garbage on the landscape, they're going to learn. If you get enough chickens on the landscapes. But in the old days, they weren't as many.
Yeah.
Maybe in the 1700s when they got shot out. But, it's new.
It's just a new concept to me, the electric fence for chickens, because I have so many friends that have chickens in Missoula, and I guess they just got lucky.
Yeah, but boy, a lot of them have been unlucky.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've responded to a lot of chicken
sure,
issues
yeah.
here, especially in the Rattlesnake, South Hills, and then Grand Creek.
Yeah, rattlesnakes notorious
Yeah.
for bears.
Well, you guys probably need a little break first, eh?
Have you thought about mapping
some of
all
these
your
pictures.
incidences so people can see, pinpoint where they are?
I've been trying to do that, but my own agency keeps hindering. Like every time I get a database going, they then tell me I'm not allowed to use that database.
Because of pharmacy, or?
I don't know. So they made me quit using Access. So then now, the last 3 years, we've been using Survey 123, and I just got notice last week that I had to stop using Survey 123. It's like they don't want me to collect the data or something, but yes, we do map and we try. We strive to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we were hoping to take advantage of, this was a barn,
Oh, yeah.
and this old foundation.
Ah, okay.
And so,
Yeah, they're teenagers. They're born like
have-
I think.
Okay, yeah. Because they go through that stage
Do they really?
where they're just like,
I mean, don't we all?
everyone does. And they're
the awkward
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm one of those.
clean up, and so
If you wanted to work just with them, not thinking bears, I bet if you just had one hot wire along the top of whatever you made, so that if they did climb, they couldn't dig, they couldn't get through.
as they got to the top. Yeah,
They
so
get a shot.
that was a question I had. Is a lot of the designs didn't have full cover on top, and that's been the tricky part. Is I was thinking we had to have a completely full cover.
So
We could have a
if,
hot wire on top, I guess.
yes, and if you were worried about the birds, that bird netting, that plastic bird netting,
Oh yeah, right.
you could get out your geometry or trigonometry or whatever, and get a sheet that went over the top and then guy wired down over.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right.
We buy it for keeping elk out of hay sometimes, but I've seen it at the stores. But I bet you could find, you might have to sew two chunks together, but they have pretty big swaths of it.
Right. It is nice. So it's really lightweight.
Yeah, really lightweight, and it would be like a net. It's almost like a, it's too tight for a bird to fly through. Yeah.
Okay.
And you could just like have it come off the top of the coop.
Skeletonized.
Yeah.
Ew, yeah. But the bones were all
And then 6 foot.
other than the head.
For here in town, because you're only dealing with the local.
It had to be a raccoon or something.
I think autumn, eh? I think because you're only dealing with skunks and raccoons, like you might want to get it a little higher just in case someone's pit bull gets over there and leaps across. So maybe a little higher. And then once it's all done, you could rig up an insulator system on the corners and the sides that was just about
Okay.
where a skunk, if he did crawl up there, would touch it,
Enjoyed it for a minute there. Okay.
and then he'd get a good shot.
Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. And he'd be already landed on here, and this would already be grounded, and you'd be like, oh, and you'd get it right through the nose. So, if a person wanted to make this bear resistant with the existing coop as it is, like let's say this was their done product, you'd probably want to help them with a gate where you'd pound another one of these in, and you'd rig up some kind of gate. You get it as super tight as possible, but then there's all sorts of insulators. Like these kind of T-posts would be tough. You'd almost have to have a normal T-post. But they've got all sorts of clips and clamps, that would go on. So if you had 3 hot wires coming off of this and you use this as your ground, you could keep most of your critters out of there. A lion, though, could jump it, and probably a wolf could jump it.
In the neighbor's dog.
Yep. And then sometimes, like if you just like you don't have anything for your chickens, you could easily, rig up a hot ground system around here that could be turned off, and you'd have to probably train the chickens to have one door, because once they get shocked, they lose their trust. So you'd have to have one spot where they always entered, but you could have a electric fence around the bottom to protect them, And then at night, if they're all in here, like what's nice about electric fences, you have the switches, and you can turn them off during the day, turn them off when you collect eggs, and then turn them back on. So you could, let's say you wanted nighttime protection, you could retrofit ground hots on the outside of this, and then have a switch here to turn it on and off. And then once the chickens were in, turn it on. And if a bear did come in, he would probably get a shock. But I have seen similar coops like this too, where they just tip it over, and then it all grounds out, and then they get a good feed.
For the fences, like around the perimeter, I'm assuming there is a switch for you if you want to get in.
Yes.
Access it.
Yes. And the easiest switch is just to unplug the wire from the fence. That's what I usually do. But yes, sometimes, especially if you've got little kids, you'd be like, be sure to turn the switch off, and then they just get them in the habit of doing that. Like I said, if they do get a shock, they'll definitely remember to turn off the switch. But I'm always cheating, I'm always like thinking I don't need to turn it off. And then it never fails. I always think I can bend over and grab something without touching the fence, but I do, and I get a shock. It's wise to stay with the color coding. Sometimes you'll run out of the materials and you'll use black wire for ground wire, and then later you mix them up and you're like thinking you're grabbing a ground and it's actually the hot, and you get a shock through. So it's best to go with the color coding. But I can show you kind of the basics on this fence here, over the one that I put up, and then you guys can ask questions. No, because there's always these bears that are daytime bears, but if you're quite active and you have kids or there's just a lot of public sort of thing, yes, do turn it off. But if you're kind of in a remoter area or rural area, I would leave it on at all times, because it would help get the dogs trained up too, and the cats, just so they'd become wary of it. But yeah, that's the big thing. Like a lot of, a couple of schools that I've worked with are like, we can't have it on because in the schoolyard, and be like, yep, just rig it up. And you can even rig it up on a timer where the timer just turns off all day, and you feed your chickens and do everything, but it's at 5 o'clock, as soon as you leave, 5:15 comes on. So there's lots of cool stuff. I don't know, should we wait for those guys, you think? We'll give them a minute. Any questions?
Do you have a general, I know it varies, but for someone like who doesn't have any of the setup yet, do you have a general recommendation for like fence height?
So if you're, it depends on what you're dealing with, but like, if you've got some goats or some stuff that's more expensive, these they sell things like this that are 4 feet, and then I think there's another one that's 8 feet or 6 feet. But you're limited with netting. But if like the fence that I have around my wall tent is just something like this. But if I was going to raise some goats or chickens, I'd have a good stout 8-foot high fence for a bedding area. Okay. Not chickens, but yeah, for goats or lambs or something like that. Just because, the wolves and the lions can jump a pretty good sized fence. Yes. But for bear, this is perfect. Because bears are, once in a while one will surprise you and do quite a jump, but for the most part they go through rather than through, or crush it down is their approach.
So sorry, you said for lions and that though it should be like for chickens, for lions
Yeah,
higher.
lions, like I think this would work for your novice lion. For your professional lion that's already gotten into chickens, he just like leap over and leap back with a chicken in his mouth. Lions are tougher, you know, like that. That'd be perfect, but that's pretty extreme. But see the fence height on the garden?
Yeah.
That'd be hard pressed for a lion to jump that.
How high can wolves jump?
You know, wolves are more with the goats, sheep, cattle. They don't. We haven't had a lot with chickens that I'm aware of. I think it happens once in a while, but it's not like with the bears and lions. You know, bears and lions are really keyed into turkey roost sites. You know, and we've got so many turkeys around here. Like if you're around a roost tree where they come every evening to roost and every morning to come down, there's always a lot of lion activity. They seem to be really keyed into that sort of roosting thing. And I think that's why the lions key into chickens, is they're like, you know, they're so used to hunting turkeys. I think grouse are pretty hard. The bears are so used to, you know, sniffing around for eggs, and they steal grouse eggs all the time, and they really dig up a lot of turtle eggs, and then they just walk the stream banks and eat duck eggs and goose eggs. And I think they're kind of at first more into the eggs, and then a bird is a bonus. Oh, this is interesting. So we had 3 grizzlies die last year from the avian flu. That thing that's killing all the chickens right now and all the birds. We had 3 grizzlies die from that. But that's direct eating of the carcasses of those birds with that influenza. So, anecdotal.
Doing their thing.
Yeah, yeah.
In the middle of town, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's so funny, like everywhere I go anymore, I mean, there's chickens, and I see people that have chickens as pets. You know, little kids, you know, and you see them taking them into the house. And
Yeah, but
chicken.
I'm like, do they even like have a coop to be in? They're literally in the street. There's no one around. Like,
You know, it's nice if you don't mind having a lot of predators around. I mean, they are wonderful. You know, when you for dinner time, you know, just get a rock and throw it at a chicken, you know, and then cook them up. And then the eggs are everywhere, you know. So if you think about it, it's really great. But rabbits too, you know, like a lot of people I know do raising of rabbits for eating, you know. And most of the time they'll have them in rabbit pens and stuff, and we get those hit a lot as well. But I mean, they never have to buy meat at the store. I mean, you go inside and they'll give you a rabbit burger, you know, sandwich, and so it does save you a lot of money. So this is like our little emergency kit that each of us carry, but you can buy these through Counter Assault. You can also buy them through UDAP, and they're for tent camping, and they're perfect for like like 2 tents or 1 tent, but you can actually squeeze a kind of a smaller wall tent inside one of these, and you can just have your door, you know, your little gate at the entrance, and then in the backcountry and during hunting season you can leave it up and on, and bears can't get in there. And on federal land, as long as it's got that 0.7 joule rating or better, it's okay under the food order to leave all your food in the tent. So a lot of hunters just get one of these, and then inside the tent they leave all their coolers and stuff while they're hunting all day, and they're perfectly legal. For bigger fences at Murdoch's, they've got them. I've got some, you know, where I'll grab the wrong one by accident for a little tiny fence job, you know, and I'm rolling it out, and pretty soon, you know, I'll find I'll be way over there by the trailer houses, and I'm like, oh, I grabbed the wrong one, you know. And then the person's like, well, if you like, you might as well put it around the whole mansion, you know. So there's a lot of variation out there.
I got a question.
Yeah.
First of all, what does this weigh? This whole unit.
So it's a little bit too much if you're backpacking.
That was my next
Yeah.
question.
If you're interested in doing a backpack kit,
Yes.
email me.
Okay.
And I've come up with one that sort of is pretty good. I took apart one of those
Okay.
and I got my soldering out and I made my own little panel,
Okay.
and I was able to cut the weight a lot, and then I just have just polywire. I roll around insulators, and then I screw them into the tree, and it's much lighter weight.
Okay, yeah, I'll be in touch.
And then there is a tent that is electric. It's pretty cool. They don't really sell much of them, but you set up the tent, and it's already got the mesh and everything on it.
Wow.
Yeah. It hasn't been a big seller though. I still think it's a little heavy.
Yeah. But finding one of these that would be light enough to pack in, but still does the job, especially in some of the places we're seeing a lot more bears coming in. We've been lucky so far, but
Yep. Like when I was in Alaska, I had a pretty good little system with just polywire and posts, but I was able to get it all in one big tent or one big pack frame. And it was still pretty heavy, but when we got landed on the beach, that was the first one we grabbed, and we'd set up the perimeter for the camp. But we got it all in one big backpack, and then the Energizer was right there built into the backpack. Yeah.
Thank you.
So these are just nasty if people don't roll them up the right way. They'll get so tangled, so you have to be really careful when you're rolling them up. And best way to do it is just take them down on the ground and then roll them up nice and tight and pull it towards you. This one had been broken here, but we were able to tape it up. But I usually start with just getting it out like this, and then I'll put it next to the coop or the shed or whatever, and I'll try to encircle it. But getting it up first and then moving the stakes around after you get it up, where the final version of your test circles will end right here, where this is your gate. And if the two ends of the fence can be attached with this little setup here, you get this really nice kind of rotating shock that just goes around. But you can also just set it up like this, like if you just needed a barrier in front of a driveway or something, and there was already an electric fence here, you could also just set it up like this. But the bottom wire here is a non-wire. It's just, you don't want to have a hotter ground on the bottom, or you would ground out. But the next one up, so this is a hot wire, the ground wire, hot wire, ground wire, hot wire, ground wire, hot wire. And so this is reasonable for a skunk or a raccoon. A weasel could fly right through here. I'm going to talk about energizers first, though. So, someone might try to sell you this. It says right on here, 120 volt, 60 GHz, but this only has 0.1 joule. So this is the Volkswagen that I was talking about. It's okay for horses, but it doesn't work for bears. This is one of the first energizers, Parmac, the Solar Pack Gold 12 volt, 3.1 joules. So for a solar, it's pretty cheap. This is a good one, It's been around and on market forever. That's a nice one, but rather than 0.7 joules, it's 0.65. So it's just a little bit under. And if I took that into the Bob Marshall Wilderness where they have the food orders, I'd get a ticket probably, because it has to be 0.7 or higher. But for my management stuff here in the front country, that's the one I use the most. And it packs a pretty good shock. The more grounds you have in the soil, the better the shock. So let's go down here to this end.
What are your grounding rods made of?
So they're galvanized metal.
Okay. So I would see the copper one.
Yep, for some reason, I think copper works good, but for some reason they always have galvanized with these fences. Now the kit itself comes with this little ground rod. Ooh, this is better than nothing, you know, for the backcountry. You know, that's the ground rod you have. It's built right into the fence. It's going around a tent. It's pretty good. But those ground rods, you can pound them all the way down in the ground, so there's only that much sticking out, and you're right down in that dark, moist soil where it's wet. Or if it's not too dry, you can dig a trench and lay the whole rod in the trench and then bury it, and you know, have the ground wire coming out of there. But red is of course hot, green is of course ground, and when you first set it up, you know, you have your hot wire and your ground wire, but then see, I have a second ground down at that end. So this ensures that the ground wires on the fence are grounded to the energizer. That one down there ensures that the ground wire on the fence is also grounded to the soil. And so it makes the grounding just super, super perfect. You could just go with the shock in the fence, but when you have it coming out of the soil as well, it's just a much better, heavier shock. If this fence was all hot, no ground wires, then you're just dependent on the shock coming out of the soil. So if you have a net fence that's not hot ground, it's all hot, boy, pound as many of those ground posts in as you can, 3, 4, and then it doesn't hurt to make a second fence in front with just one wire that is the ground. So at least the bear is touching a ground wire before it touches a hot wire, and then at least it'll get a much better shock than it would just out of the soil, if that makes sense. It took me a long time to, you know, grasp it, you know, but after putting up enough, you know, I'm like, it's really pretty simple. You know, it's the soil's the ground. You get the shock out of the soil when you touch the hot. The ground wires make it even better, because if the bear touches, you know, the ground and the hot, then it becomes the soil. And yeah, you get this wonderful deep shock.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this fence, like, is there anything in this fence or the netting without that, and it's just a plain netted fence, right? Mm-hmm. Everything is coming from these clips.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you can choose like which ones you want to do what with, which like levels, right?
Yes. You can't really switch them though. When you put this on the hot, you can't put the hot on the ground because it's different. Each of these insulate it and keep it apart. I guess you could, but you just have to make sure that nothing on the ground wire was grounding out. Like, so this hot wire cannot be touching anything that'll ground out the fence. Like a couple times people call me like, fence not working. Then I'll be like, okay, be right up. And you'll get up there and you'll see they've leaned a whole bunch of fence posts up against it, and you're like, oh, that's why. Other times you're like looking, can't find out. Then you'll see where the tractor's parked. And you'll go over there, and just one of the hot wires is touching the back of the tractor, and that's enough to ground it out completely. A tree, sometimes really heavy wet grass will ground it out. So that's where it's real important to trim. The bigger the Energizer, the more it can power through with those big heavy joules to deliver the shock. But if you had, well, you know, some of these years, you know, the grass in July 1st is like this tall and you can't even see the fence. That would probably ground it out. It'd be ineffective. Yeah.
Well, we only have a half hour left, and we need to go talk about these coops. But damn, you have a lot of information about electric fence. So you said there's somebody that comes out and will actually help with electric fences. What was
Yep.
his name again?
Russ Telmo.
Russ Telmo.
Russ
Okay.
Telmo. Yeah.
And then do you, like, if somebody reaches out for questions, are you open to that?
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
have an email or
Any
anything?
anytime, and either any of the guys that I work with too.
Awesome.
That's what we do. So.
Yeah, because this is really beneficial. I mean, you're saving your chickens' lives and, you know, all those predators' lives by putting up an electric fence. I'd never really realized it, but so as much as I hate to pivot away, we do have to go talk about the coop. But I
Okay.
really want to thank you, Jamie, for
Yeah.
coming out and
Yeah,
giving
you
this
bet.
incredible instructional.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is some really beneficial information. What have you found in your research that you must have in a coop?
Cool, yeah. I think that so we didn't know anything about chickens. We still don't. We're learning. That's why we're part of this. And we had a friend that had a coop that was kind of abandoned, but it had the structure. So we got it, and it had the front porch built, and the roof was done. And then it's cool that most of the walls are cement board, hardy board, but so that is really weather resistant, so it'll weather really well, but it was fragile, so some of the whole back wall was broken, and so we kind of just renovated it. So I didn't build it from scratch, but you could, but there's a lot of people who think that they wanted chickens or have moved, and so starting with what you can find on Craigslist or from a friend is a good idea. And I'm not a carpenter by any means. So I wanted to repurpose any materials, and so like this is an old slab from a tree that was around on this property for the little ladder. And then in the back, I can show you, we built on the nesting boxes that were originally part of it were inside the coop. And so we took them out because they were broken and built nesting boxes on the exterior so that they had more room inside. You can more easily access the eggs. And then they can't sit on top of their nesting boxes and poop and make a dirtier area. And so we were constantly thinking about ways to like clean it the easiest, take care of it the easiest. And we insulated the whole thing because we want them to be out here in the winter. And so the coop didn't have any insulation, and we just got the like foam bore insulation, which meant we put that all in, and then we did plywood walls on the interior, so they can't peck at the foam.
Something I found interesting is that it was necessary to keep a gap at the top because ventilation is very, very important inside the coop. So Caitlin didn't bring those walls all the way to the top. So that great thing, in the summer we can get pretty hot. Heat can come through the top, but also the ventilation just for their health in there because, they're living amongst their poop. So ventilation is definitely important.
Yeah. Yep.
And I was surprised to learn that myself.
Yeah, and I read that in the winter, their breath will create condensation too, and so you don't want a bunch of moisture in your coop that could freeze.
And that's enough to keep it ventilated pretty well?
I don't know. I would like even more ventilation, so we might think about putting in a window or some type of thing.
Some kind of vent on top.
It doesn't have a ton of ventilation, but we left the ceiling open.
When you say like a window, are you going to have it paned or just literally just open?
I don't know.
Fair enough.
Haven't thought that far yet. I don't know. Do you want to speak about any ventilation?
Well, the one thing I would say is, you need some kind of cross ventilation, especially in the wintertime, because it's not just the heat coming off and the moisture coming off the birds, it's also coming off the poop.
Right.
So you're going to get, and what happens is if you don't have some decent ventilation going through there, that's going to build up, and you'll know it because you'll smell the ammonia. And so you want that for a variety of reasons to move the air through. I like the idea of a window. What you can do is you don't even have to put in glass if you don't want to. In the summertime, something you can open with chicken wire over it. So nothing get in, nothing get out. And then you can just open those shutters or however you come up with it, and be able all summer long to have that ventilation going through, which is much better. Your chickens are going to be a lot happier.
Cool. So ventilation, insulation. What are we using on the bottom? What kind of material do we use on the bottom to collect their poop, and like what options do we have there?
Are you asking me?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. These are questions I have, so I know everybody else does. Yeah,
Okay.
Just to kind of keep it moving forward since we don't have too much time.
Yeah, okay. So the suggestion for that, and although it holds moisture, but it makes it easier to clean. This lumber wrap, this stuff is free. If you put lumber wrap, just lay it on the bottom, put all your shavings or whatever you're using on top. Some of you may have heard this from the last meeting. Lay it on top. You can just fold the whole thing up, take it out, dump it, hose it down, and put the same piece back in.
Brilliant.
It makes it easy to clean. It does keep the moisture down, but it also is a buffer in the wintertime. It gives you a little bit more insulation if you want to, but basically it's for cleaning.
Yeah. And you guys use Tyvek, right? That's kind of the same idea.
Yeah, I put Tyvek in
Oh,
there. to
okay,
do the same
perfect.
thing.
The other thing that I've seen people do, and I thought it was brilliant, is for your base floor, when you're building your coop and you have just the floor, you get linoleum
As I was just
pieces
gonna
and you
say.
run
Yeah,
it
that's
all the
another
way
good
out
one.
and over the
Yeah.
edge,
Yeah.
Nice.
so that when you build your walls up, you've got the linoleum running underneath it.
Yeah,
And then
Caitlin went to
also,
Home Resource and found some linoleum.
yeah, just all you need
Great.
are remnants. And then we always we sheath the inside of the coop because ours is much larger. It's a walk-in because it makes it keeps it cleaner because you don't have all those nooks and crannies where
Right.
the 2x4s and everything are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one benefit too of like sealing off the walls so that there weren't tons of areas where poop can build up.
Yeah.
And the I don't know, I think it's still, there's a couple boards left, or the flooring.
Yeah.
I got, 12 of those for $3.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
Nice.
it just you can sweep it out super quick.
It's just like linoleum tile, kind of?
Yeah, it's like clicked together.
Oh,
Yeah, and
that's
I was
awesome.
able to cut it with a saw.
So it's like LVP, but linoleum?
Yeah.
I didn't know they made that.
Yeah, I was like, this will work. So
That's awesome.
everything's been repurposed. You can tell that the framing for the coop was, a bunch of different pieces of wood that had been other projects.
Fantastic.
I love that. The fun thing is the porch.
Yeah.
It mimics because this was
It's the leftover material.
It's the leftover
I have
food
matching porches.
from that porch.
Oh my god.
Right?
And so just
love
little
that.
things like
Porch
that,
swing or
like
something.
whatever you can find, and we'll use reclaimed materials to build the enclosure as well. But I think my favorite part is, and probably the trickiest construction piece, was we wanted the whole back to open so that we could really easily clean it out. And raise it so we can bring a wheelbarrow over here and literally pull out our Tyvek, dump it, and put it back. And so the whole back, the nesting box are also a door. So the whole back opens up.
Did everybody get to see that, or should we walk around the back?
Yeah.
You guys want to come around
I'm
the
going
back?
to see it again.
Okay. Did you talk about the biosecurity?
I did a little bit, but you can mention it too. Especially, I'm not sure who here has.
If any of you have chicken and you're walking in here and you go back to your block, please be fully aware that block by walking in there.
So dirty.
Or bringing
Oh, no.
in Herbert. So biosecurity is, think of it as COVID for chickens. They're not mass, but just be aware of where you are because you could bring it or you could take it back with you.
Well, cool. Well, so this is the nesting boxes we just built on the exterior, which is, we just use extra siding from the house, but you could use plywood. And so they've got 2 little boxes there, and then this whole back opens up into there. And then they've got a roost bar. And this is hemp stock as their bedding, which I thought was kind of cool. Montana hemp farm. They were selling it at Murdoch's. They were also out of pine. So that's why we have the hemp, but I thought it was a cool byproduct.
What's the stuff called in the nesting boxes?
Yeah, these are cool. These are nesting box liners you can buy. It's aspen. But the cool thing is there's paper backing, and so you can lift the whole liner out, but they can still scratch it in it, and it protects your eggs from breaking.
Hey, Lauren, Kristen, what's the ratio of nesting boxes to chickens?
4 to 1 is cool. Yeah, because honestly, they'll always only use one. Dogs pile. And they pick a different one. Like
yes. So we have 2 for
6 months they'll use this one, and then all of a sudden they'll start using
Yeah.
That's 4 chickens to 1 box.
Correct. Yep. So she has double what's necessary, which is great. And then I don't know if you guys heard, but is that called a roosting bar inside? Yeah. So it's just a bar that runs across that they like just puff up on.
But
this
is all aspen shavings, which I guess are really high in like micro
nice.
bacterial
properties. Okay.
Oh, frigid, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know who.
about
she's not gonna
keeping the food water down here, even in the winter, but maybe running some plastic around it just to give it a little bit of a wind buffer, which would be great because this is a perfect setup for this amount of chickens. Maybe I could probably do 6 chickens in there. Yeah. But something, and Jamie touched on this. Anytime you've got wired down, and I realize this is very temporary. Sure. You need to be aware that anything can get under here, and anything can get over it, which we already talked about. But do be aware that if you pretend you're the predator, okay? You go to your coop, or you can do it here, and you walk around and you look for anywhere that you think you could get in. So start with like a weasel. They can get through anything. And then move yourself on up and take a look. This will give you a better idea because you're looking at it from their point of view. How can I get in? And they're determined.
How do you protect against weasels?
Pardon?
How do you protect against weasels?
You don't. You don't. You don't. You know.
What do you guys do for those?
I've never had weasels.
I've never had weasels.
I'll be honest, the only way I've known people deal with weasels is they go out in the middle of the night with a shotgun.
Yeah. Now we've done.
You can try and trap them. I don't know if you can live trap them because I think they're too fast for the live trap.
Jamie, do you think you
So
can live trap
they're
weasels?
a fur bearer.
Yeah.
So they are managed, but wildlife services might respond. But I think, weasels are tough. Weasels are tough because I think there is finer mesh chicken wire, but yeah, weasels are let's just be glad they aren't 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys chat about burying the chicken wire at the last
This is
workshop?
we didn't, but this is my personal opinion.
Okay.
You don't have to bury it
Okay.
because they're not smart enough to know that if I just back up 2 feet, that I can go underneath because they're trying to get in right here.
Right. But
So you can lay it down. You apron it. You go up and you come down and you come this way, and the grass all just grows through it. And it rots out after a couple of years anyway, and it's so much easier to replace that way that way, rather than trying to dig giant trenches all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And now this one's good because it's got the concrete, but again, somehow to give that buffer that's going to make it harder for them to get under. I mean, I've had a dog tear the side off my chicken coop. A dog just took the side off, and it was that kind of siding. Just so if a dog can do that, you know what the rest of them.
And I use hardware cloth. You guys know what that is? It's the it's got little tiny square
Oh, it's over here. Here's some.
mesh.
I was
Oh,
gonna say there's always something around here.
Laura's going for it.
Right over here.
There's also some in our flower fence too.
Okay, can you see this? I'm pointing the shovel at it. That's
That's
hardware
hardware
cloth.
Wanted to talk to you guys before we built anything permanent, but I think we'll do 4x4 posts around the whole perimeter using this old foundation, and then go probably six feet high. And we talked about doing netting
covering.
over the top.
I always cover my
And then
run
we're gonna repurpose an
anything
old firewood structure that's got a metal roof, so that they can have shade and protection in the winter, so that they have a little outdoor patio. Basically.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you
These
might
are
want to
some
mention
lucky
that again out
chickens.
loud. So
Yeah, we want to go. We can not be here, or we can. We can talk about where everyone's at in their process, and other people have chickens, or they're thinking about it,
Yeah,
or
questions or anything like that?
need resources.
Burning concerns.
During the winter, do you have to provide any sort of a heat source? Or if it's insulated, they're fine?
There's a reason they're covered with feathers.
Yeah. Now I will back that one up though, because with some of the birds that have the larger single combs, if it's that cold, even with their feathers, they can lose the comb, or at least lose the points off it. Now, for some of you that doesn't matter because the bird's a layer and it's just your beloved pet, but for their it's just tough on them when they have to lose something to frostbite.
There are, if you look at the American breeds, if you want a really hardy breed, that's there's things like Chanticleers are a really good one because they were developed in Canada back in like the 1950s.
Something like that, yeah.
And they're very cold hardy. If you're interested, if you just kind of, as a rule of thumb, you want small combs. If you're really worried, you can get ones that have feathered feet, like the Brahmas or the Cochins.
Are they more susceptible to like mites and things though, with the feathers on their feet?
No, they're all susceptible to.
Everyone seems to get them equally, except for the standard Cornish, not the ones you get at the grocery store, the ones that the base breed. For some reason, I think it has something to do with their armor feathered. They do not get external parasites.
That's cool.
But they're also not great layers, so.
So we don't have chickens yet. We're just kind of, thinking it through and stuff. But we have a friend who might potentially donate their coop to us.
Oh,
Would we
good.
have to sterilize it or anything to avoid those? And how would we do that?
I would clean it like you clean your kitchen floor.
Okay.
And having done this for so many years, I don't get too wrapped around the axle about it. Because a lot of the stuff that they're going to be exposed to are things that are going to be at an endemic level in the coop anyway, like the coccidia and stuff like that, and just be aware of it and manage it. The best thing you can do is leave it empty for a period of time in really hot sun. Or through a really cold winter.
Okay.
And that will knock out 99% of anything that
And they
could
could
infect.
potentially even, I think they still have chickens, but they just don't have the time for the upkeep. And so if we got, if they had 2 chickens and we wanted to, introduce another 1 or 2, how
Okay.
would we avoid? Is there just kind of just let it happen?
No. No, do you want me to take? Yeah, okay, I'll do it. So, first of all, I'm going to continue with what Kristen was saying. I would use some bleach solution in the coop anyway, just because there may still be stuff. It's an easy spray it on. You don't even have to hose it off. Just let it dry because it will evaporate and it will lose its potency. But do the question again because of my ADHD. Give me the question again.
Like, they gave us 2 of their chickens because like they're kind of.
Oh, right.
And then if we wanted to, or could we not? What?
Okay. So, yes, if you're going to introduce them, I would take the birds that are being introduced into your flock, and I would isolate them. Go away.
It's really on there.
Bugs. No, just a bug.
Oh, it's in your hair now.
Decorative.
And he's gone.
Dang. Okay, so whichever bird you're introducing in, you're going to want to take the new bird, not the birds you've got, but the new bird. Isolate it. I don't care if you put it in the garage, put it somewhere, have it in a crate. Isolate it to make sure it doesn't have any diseases, first of all. It will show you signs of disease in most situations.
Yeah, and more rapidly than it would normally because it's stressed.
Yes. Then, after, usually a minimum of 2 weeks, then you can start to bring it into your flock and did we talk about this last time, putting it in a crate?
I don't.
Did we? We didn't. Okay. So put your bird in a crate. Chris and I have different ways that we've done this. Put your bird in a crate, put food and water in it, and put the crate in. Well, for this, it would be, if you were doing it here, you couldn't put it inside because it's going to take up too much room, but you could put it out here during the day. And the other birds would go around, they'd look at it, and then after a couple, you'd have to keep pulling it back out, okay? Because I've got a big coop, so I can take something and stick it in there, because I've had over 60 birds at one time, so my coop will hold a lot. You're going to have to put it back inside, bring it back out again, because otherwise that bird in there is going to be... So a couple of nights, you take that bird and you put it in with the other ones. They all need to see faces. Chickens will recognize about 50 other chicken faces. They'll only recognize you for food, but they'll recognize other chickens. Does that help?
Yeah,
or
that
was
really
that
helps.
TMI?
No, that's great.
Okay.
No, you're good.
One thing I see here is I would put the waterer up on a block.
Yeah, because they're kicking.
Because they're just filling it with chips.
Would you have to replace these chips or add on, or as time goes on, like as they keep on?
We'll see.
Good question. What would you
You know, I would like replace it every 5 years and just let them till it in the interim, and then after 5 years, you're going to have the most amazing compost.
Oh yeah, this is compost du jour.
Yeah.
This is fabulous stuff.
So this was really awful under here. It was like gross mud, muck. And so
Used to be a barn.
They'll find it.
there was a barn here for 150 years. So
Yeah.
So they're gonna fix the soil up. We'll just probably keep adding chips.
And I think that'll be something fun to talk about too at the next session, the keeping up with the flock, because Caitlin has a lot of experience with compost and stuff, and how we can use chicken poop as compost, and then we'll also talk about planting and growing with your chickens as well. So there's a lot of benefits to them, and they're nutritious.
Yeah.
Like people would go and spend a lot of money when I worked at Ace and buy chicken manure.
Yeah. Actually, we have a pile over here if you want to look at it of chicken manure that we're mixing into our rows before we plant. It's not theirs because we just got these guys, but that'll be eventually we'll be growing with there.
And
So
you
cool.
want it to compost for a while because it would burn the plants pretty
Yeah.
badly if you use it right away.
Chicken manure is very, very rich.
Yeah,
So it does need to be.
nitrous, right?
Yes. It's a nitrate.
How often do you need to clean out the coop?
It's a lot of that is personal comfort. What you can do, most of where they make a mess is underneath where they roost. So if you just clean under there periodically when, it's about that high. Or you can put, some people will actually put, it's like a piece of material, piece of canvas or something, and it starts at the top bar of the roost and it drapes down and attaches to the bottom bar, and they poop on it, and you just take that off and take it outside and put it back.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's good. Keep the chips out.
Yeah, we're gonna hang them eventually.
Nice.
Well, you just got it finished, so this is. I
was
think
gonna
what you've
say,
got
they-
set
at
up
least
is
they're
really
landing.
good.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Oh, they're happy.
Can I want to also compliment you on using Home Resource and building this yourself, but using a local resource that it benefits all of us, and then it's going to come back and benefit you in a myriad of ways. So thank you for doing that.
She found a worm. I'm so excited.
Oh yeah, I see it.
But I agree. But yeah, it could be so easy to go down to Murdoch's and buy one. I mean, it would cost you a lot, but like this was so much fun. It was fun to help Kaylin build and stuff. And,
Yeah.
she's done a really good job.
It is. It's yeah.
I didn't start from scratch, and I think that's the thing is Missoula. It has so many good resources, and I mean, you guys all know about mud, and so a lot of the tools to do it came from mud, and other resources like the paint, like everything basically. If you're resourceful enough, you can make it work. And I think what I learned is the carpentry skills are very different when you're working with what you have. So it took me a lot longer because I was like, well, I have this piece of plywood, it's this size. How do I go from there? Rather than I have plans, I'm just gonna go build it to these plans and buy all the materials. And so,
Yeah.
But I have very little experience with building, so I feel confident that you guys can all do.
Well, it looks great. It really it came together. You did a beautiful
Like your
beautiful job on it.
supports and all the practice.
Yeah.
Like those fit. I think fit really well.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you the funny story about this is we quickly built this frame. The weather has just been so hard to work outside to try to get stuff done. But we built this frame and I didn't have the supports, and I had help one day to put the Coop on, which it is very heavy. And so we put it on and the whole support started collapsing, and so all these 2x4s were put on after the frame was here. And so also it's like you mess up and you can fix it. I think that's the thing too. How would you when you're using wood or 2x4s, would you use like pressure treated or stuff like that? Like how would you rather? Yeah, that's a good point. Or paint it maybe? I would stain linseed oil or stain or paint. This is going to be painted to protect it a little bit. I wish I would have used treated boards on the very bottom. I mean, I didn't have them. Yeah, okay.
But the key is they're all on pavers.
Yeah.
So it's not sitting in the mud.
Yeah.
So that was something simple that was.
And then would, maybe this is too much, does the pressure, if you're getting pressure treated wood, is it toxic to the chickens? I don't know.
That's a good question.
Well, they're not going to pack it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and there's a difference between there's like
Pressure treated is it's a physical process,
Yes.
not
Oh,
a
it's
chemical
not a chemical
process.
coating?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so those, what our shade structure are, you can look at those 4x4s, those are pressure treated and they don't have like the chemical.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
They're probably, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thanks everybody.
Thanks, Helen.
Yeah, feel free to answer any questions. I don't know if we have a friend, a past coworker of Mud that has a coop that's willing to donate it too. So if anyone.
Oh, really? Who?
James.
Oh, right. That's.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I
No,
forgot
it's
to say
okay.
that.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm
So,
saying.
yeah. Her name's Jane, and I can send you guys a picture of it. I'm so sorry. I forgot. I've been so
Fine.
busy. But if anybody's interested, I can just forward it to you guys. The picture. Yeah. And see if it's something that you would be interested in taking from them.
Yep, it
It's
needs
a
a
great
little.
start.
It needs a little bit of love, but it would be probably big enough for like 4 chickens.
Really great.
Cool.
Yeah.
One thing I had asked Jamie about what's the best way to cover this because for additional predator proof. Did you want to?
Do you know what that's called? It's a mist net or something. It's black, and it comes in
shade cloth.
Is that it?
No.
It's not shade cloth.
No, it's bird netting.
It's bird netting.
Oh, okay.
But it's plastic. It's
Yeah.
like a
Yes.
really lightweight.
It comes in a roll, and as soon as you unroll it and cut it, it turns completely unruly.
Yep.
I bet if you sewed 3 pieces together and drooped it over the
that would
chicken
make
house, and
sense.
then you could have it overlap.
Yeah, so I'm hoping my posts, what I'll do is
Can't remember
I'll
what it's
get
called,
10-foot posts.
We've got some at Fish
and
and
then
Game.
put a 2x4
I bought like 300
in the
feet
middle
of it a couple of years
so
ago.
that I can do chicken wire on the bottom top. And I mean, I priced out fencing because I was doing this, and it was very expensive. So the chicken, this like 3 foot is your cheapest, and then this is gonna run you. It was like $50 for 50 feet.
There's the chicken wire you've got is a 1 inch. They make a smaller one. It's
Yeah.
a 1/2 inch.
Yeah.
It costs more.
It costs. It costs
this is
more.
really inexpensive stuff. The other
Yep.
thing about the wiring is this is a welded wire.
Yeah.
It it'll over the years the welds will all start to pop. Woven wire's better, but again, you're paying a lot more for it, so it's a trade-off. But the woven wire will last the life of your coop, and this won't.
Any last questions for everybody?
How old are they?
Oh yeah, I'll tell you where I got them.
Yes, tell the story of your
So
chickens.
they are. We think they're about a
So we
year
can all
old.
bother these people too.
And so, has anyone heard of Mission Mountain Organic Eggs? It's here in the grocery store. So that's where these girls were part of a flock that was. They have about 8,000 chickens.
Holy cow.
Up out of like St. Ignatius area, gorgeous area, and they were willing to sell us some of their adult chickens because we didn't want to start with chicks, especially because Gross is not currently living here. I don't live here, so we wanted something just simpler to start with. So we wanted adults, but you can tell they're a little rough looking. They're a little pale, so they've been part of a production flock, and so. That'll just take getting good food and nutrition and some love and care here. But they're bred as layers, so they produce. I think they said, they expect 300 eggs a year from them.
For all three?
Per.
Oh wow. Average of 6 a week.
Yeah.
Per chicken.
Per chicken. Yep.
Okay. Just one a day.
And they're Lomington Brown, which is just a cross layer mix, and they like classical music.
Yes.
And we call them the Golden Girls.
Oh, that's something I forgot. But a radio.
Yeah. They like music.
Just get a cheap AM radio that turn it to the latest rock and roll.
Oh yeah.
Or an old scanner that'll keep bears and
Oh,
lions
cool.
somewhat wary.
Have any of you seen Clarkson Farm?
Yeah.
It's a
No
great
radio
show.
that's in there, yeah.
But yeah, they were playing romantic, like rom-com, or no, like audiobooks.
Oh, that worked for, I think, help with bears and lions.
Yeah, so some talking, talk radio, whatever you want your amazing. Like. NPR.
Nice that they also keep predators out. That's great.
Yeah.
Do some meditation. Can we do yoga with chicken?
Actually, you know that would get a lot of views.
1,000%.
And this is an automatic chicken door, which eventually I feel like is going to come in very handy. They're pretty crazy. It doesn't have its motor on it because they're not allowed out during the day without supervision yet. But it's light sensitive, it's photosensitive. So it'll open and close.
Good.
And then you can set a timer on it.
Yeah.
I have one for sale because the first one we put on this little porch was like it wasn't registering at the time I wanted it to. It was shading it out. So if anyone wants an automatic chicken door, I also have one.
It's got me thinking about chicken coop technology. Like there has to be one you can attach to an app and then like press a button and it like opens from
They do have
Sure. Oh my god.
And you can get, which is I think I'll get in the winter, they make really cool like smart thermometers that are you can put to your app. We have them for our high tunnels and stuff I can check on my phone what the temperature is. So I'll put one in the coop too. So I can see what temperature it is in there.
When they lay, do they ever lay outside or is it all inside?
So we've only had them 2 days.
Oh.
And I'll go get their eggs.
Oh.
Oh wow. We can walk back.
I was looking at your one shelf over there. I was wondering if you could put a back on that and make that a laying.
An outdoor layer area, like a little summer resort. Yeah. But yeah, if you guys want to come back to the picnic table, you can see it's cool. You can see you can tell there's 4 distinct different chickens. Here, I'll show you.
Oh my gosh.
That one's so tiny.
Yeah, those are very.
Yeah, so this was their eggs this morning.
The speckled egg. That one. Good job.
One, yeah.
Big mama. Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, you can tell that they're very different, and whoever's laying this has laid 3 times.